Hey everybody, how you doing? So we're moving up from the third tier of Austria into the second tier of Austria football next year. And all the teams in the second tier are professional teams. We're a semi-professional club. If we go up and play at semi-professional, we're going to get mauled next year. Now the board hasn't said anything to me yet, so I got to just make a call to the owner and confirm that we're going to be professional next year. I'm sure this is going to go fine. He doesn't speak English, by the way. Hallo, das ist Zilla.
Ja.
Wir sollten nächstes Jahr ein professioneller Fußballverein sein.
Nein,
Warum nicht?
wir haben kein Geld.
Wenn wir professionell sind, können wir Geld verdienen.
Nein,
Bitte,
nein,
bitte schön,
nein,
bitte ziemlich hübsch,
nein,
bitte schön mit Zucker an der Spitze.
nein.
Nein. Okay. Schuss. Damn it. That didn't go very well. Hello everybody, welcome to Walkabout Europe, the Football Manager 21 Journeyman save where we can only move between clubs in the game when we've walked and exercised the equivalent distance in real life. We are at the end of our third season right now. This is the season wrap, an episode where we look behind the scenes at some of the numbers and the geeky stuff about the past year, and then we're also going to take a little bit of a poke into the future. However, as you could see from our introductory phone call, the bit of bad news since the season ended, which was only about 5 days or so ago, was poking about the second tier of Austrian football. Every team at that tier is professional except for one, and they got relegated this year. The board says we do not have enough money to go professional. So that's going to be a little bit of a bummer. We're going to have our work cut out for us. I mean, the good thing is we don't have to renew all our contracts. But before we jump into this episode, it is Tuesday, and that means it's time for a fitness update. Another week update. So it took 48 days to lose a little bit over 6 pounds, and then it took me 48 hours to gain 4.5 of them back. I know, 3 things. It was Valentine's Day. That brought some sweets in the house. My wife's birthday, combined with Valentine's Day, meant some pretty big meals and some beverages and stuff. And then I also gave up caffeine last week. So that created a little bit more stress eating. So yeah, 48 hours later, 4.5 pounds of it was back. It was almost back to where we started from, just 1.5 pounds down. The good thing is though, over the rest of the week, I was able to lose 3 pounds of that again. So we're still down a total of about 4 pounds. And I think all things considered, I'll have to say, giving up caffeine and still being down like that, it feels like things are going in the right direction. And more importantly, I think it was Lyle from Dragon's 8 Our Name who said, "Are you feeling better?" And the answer is unequivocally, yeah. I feel a lot better, more energy, more concentration. I just feel healthier. So I think we're on the right track. Just got to keep going. This week, the weather got warmer. It's been so cold for 3 weeks. Now it's more like -5 to -7 centigrade. And that's easier. Get a dog out for walks and can go running a little bit more now. So I think in that regard, kind of excited. Maybe we're past the worst part of winter here, which should help a lot. So this will be our biggest week, I think our second biggest week. It's Sunday morning now, so I still have the rest of the day to add into the miles, but close to 50 miles this week. So a little bit over 80 kilometers or so. So all things positive, I think. Steady as she goes. The exciting part is the circle's looking really big now, so let's take a look. So here's our circle. It's pretty big now, about 350 kilometers. And if we take a look at where we reached this week, some big cities, Dresden in the north, we're into Poland in the northeast, Bratislava in Slovakia, more terrain in Hungary, Zagreb in Croatia, Venice in Italy, we cut into Switzerland, and we reach Stuttgart in Germany as well as Dresden. So pretty big. And this week it gets even more exciting. I mean, by the end of this week, we should have a pretty good chunk of Germany carved out, including reaching Leipzig and Frankfurt, which would be big cities there. We'll start to work our way into Poland. We should reach Budapest in Hungary, and very intriguing would be kind of cutting down here Bologna or Milan in Italy, and then Zurich in Switzerland. And I'm thinking kind of our third move, we've got kind of 2 or 3 maybe tactical route options coming up with our next move. One would be Germany, then perhaps Netherlands, Belgium, and then England or France as a fifth team, kind of working our way northwest. The other one is southwest, kind of in Italy, France, maybe French Mediterranean, and then into Spain for a fifth move could be possible. Another route would be kind of go back east and then come out either via Croatia down into Italy or Poland and then into Germany for kind of a fifth move too. And I have no idea how many teams it's going to take. It could very well take 6 or 7 teams before we kind of find a final place here. But anyway, good week of progress. Excited to keep going. All right, let's jump into the meat of this episode, which is going to be a reflective look back on the past season. Then we're going to look at some faces in the crowd, like how did some of our talent and some of the players we identified through the year develop. Then lastly, we're going to kind of make some predictions for the future, some things we need to do over the first month here of the summer. Got a lot of work cut out for us next year. So the big story, of course, of last year, of this past season was we had a fantastic run in the second half, huh? So ended up first by 3 points, winning the league on the last day, which was fantastic. If we look at our run in the first half of the stage, we were in 4th place. It was our second half of the stage form where we really accelerated, winning that by 5 points. That kind of lifted us to the trophy at the end there. And then, of course, winning the playoffs and moving on. I'm hard-pressed to think of a season that I think went so well quite as this one in terms of playing Football Manager for me. It felt really rewarding to have this happen. I felt like we had a couple lucky breaks along the way, and we were relatively injury-free too, which was a real big break. I mean, you need that kind of stuff, but just an all-around fun, marvelous season, and it was really enjoyable to play. So I hope it was as enjoyable to watch and be part of, and that semifinal match was such a memorable match in those promotion playoffs. So all in all, a good year. We did lead the league in... We had the lowest goals allowed in the league. I think we're second in goals scored. We're 8 behind Wolfsberger. And then we did lead the league in goal differential as well. Again, 16 wins, 8 draws, and 4 losses. Only 1 loss in the second half of the season. So, yeah, the second half of the season performance was really strong for us. Now, we had a few awards. I'm not going to go through that end-of-season review because I'm not sure a ton of it's all that interesting. And plus, it's already kind of drifted out of the email box, so it's not really active anymore. We did have some awards that I wanted to point out. Thomas Tannert got Goalkeeper of the Year in the league for us. He had 14 clean sheets out of 28, started every single one of our matches, 6.86 rating. So he won that award, which was fantastic. And then surprisingly, Benjamin Taffner only had 14 starts. He had 11 substitute appearances, but only 14 starts, 15 goals. He got the Golden Boot despite only starting in half of the league's matches. He was tied with one other player, but Taffner had the fewest minutes played. So by virtue of that, he got the Golden Boot. And he got the Striker of the Year award for this league as well. So congratulations to Benjamin. Now, I'm not bitter at all, but this league doesn't have a Manager of the Year award for either months or for the whole season. So there was no glory for us as managers here in this league. Not bitter at all about that. And then our goal of the season, I knew it when it happened. As soon as this happened, I said, this is the goal of the season. Right? What's going on? Wait, come back. Here it is. This one right here. I did show it once before. Mark Lowe, who we'll talk about in our Faces in the Crowd, screaming down the right-hand side, launches a left-footed blast into the left side of the net. That was our goal of the year. Worth watching one more time. Congratulations to Mark Lowe. I think that's about it in terms of kind of the individual player statistics. Finances are also a little bit of an interesting story. So we're 280,000 pounds in debt right now. However, last season we had a 400,000 pound deficit. This season we only had a 100,000 pound deficit. So we did pretty well in kind of staunching the bleeding a little bit here. Now next year we'll have about 11,000 wage budget. We had a little bit over. I moved some of it into the transfer budget so I could move it into our scouting budget because we had no money left for scouting and I want to start scouting right away. So we're going to be about 11,000 with our wage budget, and currently we're spending about 3,000. And I think after the bonuses for next year, minus the players we're going to be losing, we're going to be roughly about the same. So we have about 11,000 in wages to work with. And so I think we're going to be able to sign. Looks like the average wage is about 300 or 400. So I'm thinking we're going to be able to pick up some players. Now, the challenging things going up for next year. I was looking at the league status. This is like going from the level of play as like the National League in England to League 2. To League 1, sorry. So it's like a double league jump. So this is a pretty significant jump in quality of play. So bridging that gap's going to be tricky. And bridging that gap at semi-professional status rather than professional status is going to be tricky. I think we're going to have our work cut out for us. And the third thing is that the transfer window is a hard transfer window. You can't even pick up free agents after the kind of beginning of August. So we have 2 months to get our work done, and then that team has to carry us all the way through to the winter break. So it's going to be a busy 2 months, and I don't want to sign players early in June because I want to wait for their wage demands to drop until we get to July. So it's going to be a crazy July as we try to fill in these spaces. So that's, I think, a little bit of the review in the season. All in all, pretty happy. If we look at club expectations real quick, we met, these are the new ones. So we did pretty well on club expectations last year. I think we hit everything that they were looking for and all that kind of stuff. There might have been one of these club culture ones we were off on, but they given us an A-. I feel like this board is a little bit strict for whatever reason. But let's go now to our next section, which is Faces in the Crowd. We're going to take a look at 3 of the players we highlight, and one new one as worthy of note to kind of see how they did. Now, the first one, you may remember this person. He was our former olive oil wrestler from Turkey, Ogun Ugur. We found him again selling watches in the Vöcklamarkt little city market there. Signed him up. I had high hopes for Ogun as a target man, but we just couldn't work it into our offense. So about halfway through the season, poor Ogun was moved down to the B team. He just doesn't have enough speed to be more than a target man. And the target man, he doesn't have enough teamwork to be kind of a supportive target man, and he doesn't really have enough on his heading to be an attacking target man, so it just never quite fit into the club. So unfortunately, I'm going to grade out Ogun's progress. Also, Ogun had 309 attribute points at the beginning of the year, and at the end of the year, he's at 312, so a gain of only +3. So Ogun's grade for this year in terms of hopefulness is a D-. On a positive note, he did sell 263 watches to players, staff, and other people in the audience during the crowds there. So he did have a good time selling watches this year. But yeah, Ogun's future might be a little bit grim. I'm not hopeful he's going to ever be a shining star at the club, but I've been wrong before. Let's take a look at our next player in the crowd, Dieter Jensen. Dieter Jensen, remember, was our Leo Demis experiment. Can we take a player and totally shift his position and see how he did? Very interesting story here, and I have a question for people because I'm a little bit mystified by one of these things. So here's the thing. Dieter Jensen started out as a left back. We turned him into a defensive midfielder. By the course of the year, he became a natural at defensive midfielder, which was perfect. So from that perspective, the Leo Demis experiment was absolutely astounding. Now, his player ratings were 6.67. He started 25 matches at this ball-winning midfielder role and the defensive midfielder role at a rating of 6.67. But I'm convinced that the ball-winning midfielder and defensive midfielder ratings in Football Manager 21 are way underrated because when I would see him in highlights, he would play pretty well. Doesn't get a lot of assists or goals, which is kind of why I think the rating's low. And I think there's kind of a skewing towards lower ratings for this position. So I'm not sure that's an overall indication of how well he played. And it took him a while to get used to this playing this position because he was really awkward in the first third of the year. But again, our defense allowed the fewest number of goals in the year, and I think Dieter Jensen's role, kind of anchoring that front line of defense there, was a big one. But here is my mystery question for you. When Dieter Jensen started out the year, he was a 2-star player with 4 or 5-star potential. Now, his development, interestingly enough, he started the year at 305 attribute points. At the end of the year, 303. He lost 2 attribute points this year. I think he lost like 4 in technical and picked up a couple in mental and physical for a total of -2. So he went backwards attribute point-wise. But here's the mystery. His current ability as rated on our team went from 2 stars to 3.5 stars, even though we improved the overall level of ability of the team. So most of our players who started out at like 3.5 or 4 stars during the year, their star ratings dropped down as we added better quality players in January. Dieter Jensen's went up even though his attribute points went down. How does that happen? I don't understand. Maybe somebody smarter than me can tell me that, but I'm fairly mystified as to how that can happen. If you know or you have an idea, I'd be curious to hear what the thinking would be. So, anyway, we're belaboring the points. What's Dieter Jensen's grade? C-. Really happy that he was able to contribute to the team. Happy that he's an accomplished defensive midfielder. But I'm really kind of bummed out that his attribute points went down by 2, and I'm not sure he's going to have enough on it to play at that next level. We're certainly bringing him with us because we have him signed for 2 more years. But I'm not sure where Dieter's future is going to be. We might go to another Leo Demis experiment player next year. Let's take a look at our next player, Mark Lowe. Mark Lowe, if you recall, he had a rough childhood. His father was a plastic surgeon and used to abuse him with scalpels. Had a really rough time. He started at the beginning of the year, 6 goals in 7 matches, was totally on fire. Then, unfortunately, his season took a turn for the worse. He had a couple of injuries, and that triggered those childhood traumatic situations. So even when he came back from injury, his form was just a shell of what he was doing in the fall. We got him some psychiatric help, and he's continued on with that. That helped because he had a big goal in the playoffs, and his form seemed to be picking up at the end of the year. Attribute-wise, though, Mark went from a 265 attribute total to a 272. So only a gain of 7 points, and really spent almost half the season sidelined because of injury. Mark Lowe's grade is a D+ for how he developed during the year. We're not giving up on him. I think I can envision him being a backup for us and getting some playing time out on the right wing next year for us. But I'm hopeful that we're not going to have to rely on him as a starter because I don't think he's quite ready for the next level, for 2 levels up in terms of league status there, kind of that big jump that we have to make. Lastly, I want to present one more player, one more face in the crowd who we haven't really mentioned too much about yet. But this is our Cinderella story. Faik Aydin. Now, we haven't said too much about him. Faik Aydin comes from a city in Turkey, a little town in Turkey, Osmaniye, Turkey. Now, for those of you that don't know about Osmaniye, Turkey, it's in the southeast corner of Turkey, down near Syria, in a fertile crescent river valley, and famous for its peanut production. And that's what Faik's family does. It started out as peanut farmers, and now they have a small peanut trading company there. And his dad sent Faik to Austria to get schooling so he could eventually come back and run the family business. Faik came here and picked up soccer at the age of 14 as high school started, played a few seasons with SV Wals, and we picked him up last year. One of the conditions now, Faik has fallen in love with soccer. One of the conditions that he can keep playing is that he trains really hard and makes progress because his dad is putting a lot of pressure on Faik to come back to Osmaniye and help out with the family business. Faik's training ratings were up around 10 on many weeks. Trained like a demon, and get this, his attribute gain went from 317 points to 345 for a total gain of 28 attribute points. Now, he started 10 matches for us with a 6.91 rating at center back. However, if we look at his ratings, finishing as a 7, passing's a 9, he's got good enough ratings, I think, to move out of that defensive midfielder role, and I'm thinking we might want to retrain him next year as a midfielder. Good mentals, pretty good physicals, and coming up, his acceleration was an 8. It's up to a 12 now. That's crazy. So have high hopes for Faik Aydin. His grade as a development for a future hopeful is an A-, and I'm hopeful that he's going to play a role in some way for us next year, either training him in as a central midfielder or perhaps if his development continues in that center back role that he played for us this year. So there you have the faces in the crowd. Now let's move on to the last part of our update, taking a look at the future. What do we need to do? It's now the 4th of June. We have 2 months to get this club ready. We have a ton of work left to do. I've actually made a list now of the positions that we need. I have to read it off because there's so many of them. Really think we need an upgrade at striker. Tafner's okay, but he's 30 years old. He's streaky at best, and I think we need someone a little bit better to kind of lead that, spearhead that attack. We're going to need another couple of midfielders. I think we have Aral who can play there now, but we're probably going to need a couple more midfielders around there. Likewise, our center defender, our best player was Leedinger, and he was on loan. He's been signed by another club, so he is gone. We're going to need 2 center backs for sure to improve it. Probably need an upgraded goalkeeper, even though Tanner was the goalkeeper of the year in the league. He's 25 years old, and he's just kind of, he's okay. I think he's going to struggle at the next level, though. So I think we're going to need an upgrade there. Probably need upgrades out on the wings on offense as well as defensive midfielder. And we're going to delay our signings a little bit, too. So we got a lot of work to do, and we got a lot of stuff to get busy for. Now, the other question, of course, is you saw a circle for movement. Do we want to move? And here's my strategy for that, or here's what I think we're going to do for that. Once it gets to be June 10th, I'm going to get my next license. That will move my profile from 1 3/4 stars to 2 full stars of reputation. Once that happens, I'm going to come in here to the job center, and I'm going to look for some kind of attractive jobs that might be in like the 3rd tier of German football or the 3rd or 4th tier of Italian football, or maybe something in Switzerland if it's available. There's nothing available now, though. See if there's something there, and maybe apply to like 3 or 4 of those jobs to see if we get some kind of a really good offer to move on. And if that's the case, we might entertain it, but I'm thinking that it's going to be really fun to play another year with this club. We got some interesting players, we've got an interesting situation. It's going to be a fun battle to stay up next year, So that's what my thinking is. Going forward, we'll be back in about a month. So we'll be back around the first week of August or so for our preseason episode to talk a little bit about the signings that we've made, how things have gone over the month. We might have some job offers to judge then as well. But that brings us to the end now of our 3rd season of the Journeyman and our 1st season with Sportunion Vöcklamarkt. I hope you've enjoyed the season. If you have things that you'd like to see more of in this series going forward, things you'd like to see less of, tips or suggestions for making it better, I would love to hear them. My goal is to make this as fun as and entertaining as to watch as it is to play. So I'd love any kind of tips or offerings or suggestions you might have to make this better. And I look forward to our next season. Also, as always, thank you so much for the support. I still can't believe that I play a game and people watch it, and that's just really cool. And thank you always again for the support, comments, and all that kind of stuff throughout the course of the year. It really enhances the experience for me, and I'm just grateful for people that in a busy, busy time take the time to watch the stuff that's out there. So thank you again for all your support for this adventure. That brings us to the end of this episode. We'll be back on Thursday with our preseason for season 4 episode, most likely with Vöcklamarkt, but we may have a move to make in terms of jobs if something really good is out there. Thank you, everybody. Have a great middle of the week, and we'll see you towards the latter part of the week. Take care.